Good evening to you as we welcome you inside the Tower Grill on the campus of Arizona Christian University for the Storm Report, season number 2, episode 14. And we have a chock full of everything for you here in this afternoon's program. I'm your program host, Kevin Derryberry, to be joined by the ACU getting excited to say this, Assistant Athletic Director, Mr. Tim Gosen, is our co-host here this evening. And the man in the middle is the front man for ACU baseball, Mr. Joe McDonald. And we will feature Joe Mack here in just a moment, but also on this evening's program on the Storm Report, we will also talk a little beach volleyball with Sarah Blomgren. Our third-year coach will join us here on the program as the beach season will begin here on Friday afternoon as ACU will take on the Thunderbirds from Mesa Community College. So we'll talk with Sarah Blomgren about her season coming up, and we'll take it to the tennis circuit. We'll talk with head coach Phil Carlisle as we discuss the men's and women's tennis program here at ACU. And Mr. Gosen, good evening, sir. How are you?
I'm great. It's a great day to talk about Firestorm athletics and, baseball, tennis, and beach volleyball. Let's go.
Hey, those are marquee sports. We can talk a little basketball next week, but great things happening for Coach Rudder. In fact, great things happening around the campus in its entirety. Dr. Dreyer with a nice email to everybody with all the happenings, the comings and goings on campus. So great stuff here on campus. But Joe McDonald, he is leading his baseball team to a 6-2 start. Joe, we welcome you to the broadcast. How are you, sir?
Doing well. Just caught up on some sleep from a long flight back from Florida and getting ready for another big week this week. So thanks for having me.
Well, you look well refreshed, and I tell you what, the 6 wins got to make you, feel and look pretty good. You're doing great, and the season's been an absolute fantastic start.
Yeah, really proud of the guys and the way that we're embracing a tough schedule early on and matching up with it and representing not only ourselves but our school against a lot of different opponents and a good variety to start the year, and not just playing one team 3 or 4 times, but we've played 8 different opponents and 5 of them being ranked in the top 25 to start off the year. So it's been a good challenge, but our guys have been representing and doing a good job.
Mr. Gosen will get into the happenings in Lakeland, Florida, but I wanted to ask you your thoughts and takeaways from those first 4 games in the Coach Calderon Invitational. We know that Coach Calderon is very close to your heart, close to this program, and really kind of was instrumental in laying the foundation for the early years of ACU baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. We were able to continue on honoring a great man, a good friend of mine, and Dave Calderon, and putting some smiles on his wife, his daughter, and his son's face, that we can still honor him and his legacy, but also win some ball games. And so we are 15-2 in the Coach Calderon Invitational and play with heavy hearts, and we just feel like we get a little extra help from not only the big guy upstairs, but his little sidekick and Dave Calderon upstairs. So
certainly doesn't help and doesn't hurt to have the good Lord hanging out and leading the way for us, Mr. G.
Well, so you talked about Coach Calderon, and then you found yourself in Florida, ranked going against 4 ranked opponents. And Joe, you always got to talk about travel when you go across basically the entire country. How did the trip go? How did it unfold? I know you played some good ball. We can talk about that, a couple of walk-offs and some of that. But how was your trip overall?
Yeah, it was pretty smooth. I mean, no issues with flights, and there's been a lot of that across the country lately. And we were able to get in the day before we played. It was late, but able to get a little sleep before we matched up against Southeastern. And we had a little hiccup in the weather, but it didn't affect our game. It affected some other games, so we benefited, and we were grateful to have the opportunity, and everything went really smooth. No issues, no injuries either.
It's Florida, so we're probably dealing with some rain, I assume, right?
Well, it's really my second time being there and first time for sports, and so that's what they said, and they weren't lying.
Lakeland, Florida, to be precise, for those of you that were curious about where they were.
Home of the Detroit Tiger spring training facility, if I'm not mistaken. Lakeland, Florida.
This is correct, yes.
Did you catch any alligators while you were there?
No, stayed as far away from every body of water I possibly could.
So you stayed in the car?
Yeah, pretty much.
Joe, if you would elaborate a little bit, Enrique Portes was a member of the Southeastern team a year ago that won the national championship. And It was a special day for him to return home in a different uniform, but they honored him at the pregame as well.
Yeah, it was really neat for Enrique because they did a ring ceremony during the football season, and he wasn't able to be there, and so they saved his shirt and his ring. And right before the game, Coach Dinkle, doing it right out there, and brought Enrique out, and his teammates and everybody cheered for him, and he got the recognition that he deserves. He was in the dog pile, and obviously we're very excited to have him with us now. So,
how did that transition go, where he goes from one coast to coming to here, wins a national championship, and he ends up with you guys? How did that work out?
Well, I hope he's just bringing, the old lady luck on his side that got him. Well, they're pretty good, but I'm hoping he brings a little love for the title to Arizona Christian with him. The guy knows how to win, and he's a great leader, so he's helping us out big time.
79 runs in your first 8 games, 47 allowed. You guys are hitting the ball. I mean, there's no question about it. You got some scores, 23-4. You got some 12-11s in there. What are your guys? What's the secret to their success currently? Are they just seeing beach balls and they're just swinging away?
Well, first of all, it doesn't hurt when you got a leadoff hitter that can set the table. And I want to say it's 5 or 6 games he's led off with a double. Puts pressure on the other team right away, and Justin Ramirez, and we're just grinding, and our 2-strike approach has been really good, and fighting through at-bats and getting to the bullpen. I mean, a big key of our success in Florida was getting to the bullpen and extending starters' innings to make sure that, they weren't having those quick innings, and we only had a couple of those, and our guys are just competing and playing situational baseball really well offensively and executing right now. So it's been a fun group to watch from the get-go. We've ran into some really good arms and had some, we had those high-scoring games and we had some low-scoring battles, and we've been able to match that on the other side of it, which is really encouraging to play defense and have pitchers that are able to match up with, like the lefty from St. Thomas coming from University of Miami that was 88-91 with some plus stuff, and we were able to match that up with our own pitching and Jackson O'Hinsey and solid bullpen that day, and obviously a pretty exciting walk-off from Daniel Durazo, and on his anniversary, and that's Daniel Durazo Day in ACU baseball program now, because he just walks off every February 3rd.
Hey, that's how traditions are started, right, for Daniel Durazo. So good for Double D to get it done. Tim had mentioned 79 runs. That's 3rd in the country. 98 hits, number 1 in all of the land. 73 RBIs, 3rd in the nation. The bats are definitely having a great start to the season. But I want to talk a little bit about the pitching staff, Coach, and you alluded to it just for a moment there when you talk about some of the bullpens. But when you think about having a frontline starter, and all your guys are going to vie for that role by the time the season's over with, but Adrian Santa Cruz just gives you that belief factor. He gives you the it factor. He's a Friday night kind of pitcher, a young man that if things go his way, could be drafted. He's got that kind of stuff. But when you add, 2-part question, Joe, when you add Adrian to the mix and then you also add in your new pitching coach and Coach McGill, what do those 2 dynamics bring to your program?
Well, they see eye to eye very well because they're both really tall. But no, Adrian. Yeah, there you go. Adrian, he is a good, amazing frontline starter. He works really hard, but he has feel. He understands how to pitch, and him and Coach McGill and Terlizzi's been the one catching him behind the plate. They've just clicked, and it's been a great group to just continue to grow and compete. I mean, he matched up against Southeastern, and minus a couple mistakes behind him, we're ahead when he comes out, and that's the best team in the country, and supposedly the best hitting team in the country, and he was able to shut them down for the most part, besides a couple of hits and a 381-foot home run to center field. So no, we feel very confident with him on the bump and the rest of our rotation, and very excited about some of the bullpen arms that are stepping up, and looking forward to some other guys, improving from their outings that haven't been up to their capabilities, but we're going to work hard. Coach McGill's doing a great job and getting them going, and we're just focusing on competing just like we are offensively. So.
One of those guys, Tim, is Jackson Hohensie. He's coming on in just a couple of starts, but he looks to be fully recovered from all of his off-season woes and new mindset, that what we call a great headspace, and he's healthy. Well, he's looking the part right now.
Yeah, so, his first outing, he went out and had a rough first inning, and Coach McGill and I brought him aside and reminded him who he was and what his strengths are. And he hasn't lost sight of that since, and really went toe-to-toe against St. Thomas. Very large humans on that team, big athletic young men that can hit the long ball in a heartbeat. And he was able to keep him off balance, and he just flat pitched and competed, and we played good defense behind him. And, good, exciting future ahead for him as only being a sophomore, but stepping up in a role that we needed someone to step up with a couple guys not able to pitch yet for us that are going to be key contributors. So.
Well, Coach, for you head into a week where you're now jumping into the Firestorm Invitational, and this will be your opportunity. You just talked about that you've played 8 games and you haven't faced the same opponent. You'll book in with Midland on the front end and on the back end of this coming weekend. So as you're heading into this Firestorm weekend, it's not quite as dramatic because there's, sometimes you're only having the one game, but there's other games going on. Park Gilbert's in on the mix. So as you're heading and preparing into this week, what are you looking for?
Hey, sat the guys down today and told them, the success we had in Florida was great. It was fun. It's behind us now. And, really it's not that it doesn't matter, but it's easily forgotten if we don't back it up and continue to improve. We can get caught up in records and who we beat and who we've played and where we're at right now. And if we don't continue to get better and prepare today, this week's going to come up and bite us, and we need that momentum to head into conference play playing our best ball. And the only way we're going to do that is to back it up and improve this week off of our early success, but to create some more success through hard work and taking care of the little things, which is what we've really done a good job of, not multiplying and amplifying mistakes, where not backing up an error with an error, a walk with a walk, a strikeout with a strikeout. We've done a pretty good job not snowballing our game, and that's led to some early success.
Head coach Joe McDonald, our guest on the Storm Report. My last one for you, Joe. You and I were talking earlier in the day, and we talked about the first 4 games in the Calderon Invitational, that first 4, that quadrant, and then that second quadrant that you played in Florida. And you talked about the maturation of your team in just a brief time here in 8 games. What did you see over the weekend where you saw your team grow?
So, after a big, hard-fought battle against the number 1 team in the country, defending national champs, it's very easy to come out the next day deflated and not play well and almost not be able to play up to our capabilities, and that's exactly what we did for the first 5 innings. And we found ourselves down 6-0, made some mistakes, didn't make some pitches, and found a good arm on the mound that we were facing, but we weren't playing our game. And before I could even say anything, our guys brought each other together and said enough is enough. And sure enough, we scratched back and tied it up 8-8 and leads back and forth. And we were able to take the lead. It didn't hurt having Trey Tarver in the lineup that day with 5 RBIs. And
that's always a plus.
Yeah, it was. There was some timely hitting and clutch defense and some bullpen arms that kept us in that game. So it was different guys in that game that helped us to come back, and that's where we showed our grit and our grind and our ability to play together. And the best lesson, well, not lesson, but the best display of who we are and defining right now who we are was our last game loss against Shreveport. We were down 11-0, and not one guy was pointing fingers, not one guy was feeling sorry for themselves by not pitching good, playing good, and we were mixing guys in and out and, building for the future. And the guys just kept rallying and rallying, and we were able to make a comeback. And I told the guys, we're going to be stronger because of this loss coming together than we are from some of our wins during the year. And it was just really neat to see them come together and bond on a road trip where not every team in the past that I've coached, I can say that happens on road trips, and this group did it on their own.
Well, I know we got to get wrapped up and start talking to Coach Blomgren for beach volleyball, but Coach, while we have you, I just wanted to say I know there's a lot of things going on, family at home, and we still continue to pray for your family. And you're a rock in the ACU community when it comes to stuff that's happening in your life, and still managing to show up and coach the team. 6-2 start, all that going on at home, and Coach, we just wish you all God's blessings in all of that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and there's the big guy upstairs and our Lord and Savior that we're just trusting in His path for our family, and whatever our future looks like. And I get to come and play every day instead of come to work, and it's a great outlet because everybody around me is supportive, but also these young men, they're so fun to be around, and they represent the Lord and our university, and they make my job easy to go to, and just love being here, and so I appreciate that.
Tim, well said. No doubt about that. I agree 100% and echo that same sentiment. Two other quick things here before we part ways with Joe Mack. One is you talked about very large humans. We've got a couple of those guys on our squad as well. Tanner Vilguth, one of those guys, 6'3", 245. We'll take the size all day long. Just a freshman coming on. And Riley Quinton out of the bullpen. He's emerging right before our very eyes. Gives you another option out of the pen. You got to be excited about the development of those two guys as well.
Yeah, I know we're short on time, but Tanner's been not a surprise, but it came a little bit quicker than most freshmen, and he stepped into a big role in with Tarver not being able to play defense right now, and Tanner just took the bull by the horns and has had some huge hits and a 2-run bomb against St. Thomas that put us up 3-1, helped us win, playing amazing defense at first. And Riley Quinton coming out of the bullpen, he pounds the zone, throws strikes, and he's ready to make the next pitch before the batter even blinks. And we love what he's doing, and he's competitive, and he's really helping us out. So appreciate you guys.
Tempo and pounding the zone, huge points of success for your baseball team. Joe Mack, our guest here on the Storm Report. We're going to take it to the sand. We're going to talk a little beach volleyball with Sarah Blomgren straight ahead. It's the Storm Report. We welcome you back inside the Tower Grill here on the campus of Arizona Christian University. I'm Kevin Derryberry, and my broadcast partner here this evening is Mr. Tim Gosen. And joining us on the main stage here, the lady in the middle, this is Sarah Blomgren, our beach volleyball coach, now in her 3rd year. Sarah, boy, time flies when you're having fun, right?
Yeah, time flies when you're getting sandy.
We welcome you back to the show and your second opportunity to be with us here.
Yep.
Tim, why don't you start us off with Miss Sarah Blomgren?
Well, Sarah, I'm going to start us off in a different direction. We'll get to your team here in a second, but I got to start off. Let's talk about your World Cup experience here this past summer.
What's that?
So here at ACU, and we will talk to Coach Phil about this as well coming up on this segment.
He's mad at me
we were talking about World Cup, and we got to watch the World Cup. We spent a lot of time as a department watching it in our lobby, and it was a hoot and a holler to watch Miss Blomgren over here watch the game of soccer, and the rest of us were more watching you than watching the game, and Phil's like, what are you doing? So tell us about your World Cup experience from this summer.
Here's the deal, guys. I grew up with an older brother who plays ice hockey. So the banter and the just pushing buttons is something that I grew up being frustrated with, but I learned how to do. And so as soon as I walked in every day, saw everyone just diligently gathered around the TV, I just wanted to start hassling people and seeing who would react. And Phil, our lovely tennis coach, was often the victim. So it was fun for me just to ruffle some feathers. I don't watch soccer, I'm going to admit.
Apparently.
Yeah, so I did. I mean, by the end of the day, I had a couple questions, actually, that I was genuinely curious about, but mostly
Like
just,
which team was USA?
No, I could tell by the colors, pretty sure. But, yeah, it was a good time.
What intrigued you about soccer?
I think they're just a bunch of babies. I'm going to be honest with you.
Keep it honest, huh?
I think coming from the hockey background, just watching them flop around, I was like, come on, guys.
You have to respect your point of view. I mean, a hockey background is very different than what we see on the pitch.
Yes,
you talk about
quite different.
A lot different type of athlete as well.
Yes.
Intestinal fortitude is different. The toughness, all that's very
A
different.
lot more teeth, though, in
Right.
soccer than
You
in
got
hockey.
Fair point,
more
yes.
chiclets.
More
in
chiclets,
soccer.
yeah. You're not spitting chiclets.
Head
that's for
injuries
sure.
are in both sports. That's just part of the deal. Well, Sarah, last year you had the most wins in Sand Beach history here on campus, 7 wins.
Yep.
And going back to the first couple of years, that was quite an achievement. How do you take that momentum from last year? You had success in the GSAC postseason tournament. You won 1 match there. You beat Masters, and then ultimately fell out to OUAZ. But how do you build on that momentum from last season till now?
Yeah, we are super excited because we've returned so many of our freshmen that are now sophomores, and then even some juniors. And so with that experience, I think for all of our newcomers and our freshmen that are here now, the mentorship has increased between the team and just the team chemistry that we've worked so hard on. We spent a lot of time last year working on team chemistry, and then a lot of time this year in the fall and the preseason working on handling adversity and how can we get to our goals and what are the steps. And I think our returners have really stepped into some awesome leadership roles, and then our freshmen have come in and just really made it extra competitive. And I think it's brought everyone's level up, just from our bottom pair all the way up to the top pairs. It's super competitive, so it's a different vibe this year for sure.
Different vibe, as in you think you're up going in the right direction as a team, and you're going to make some noise in the sand.
Yeah, absolutely. We've talked about some pretty specific goals that we have this year, and top 4 is definitely in our sights, and I think we can do it. We believe we can. We've put in the work. We've increased the level, and I think the girls are in a mentality of, hey, we got work to do, and it's a short season. So, yeah, we're ready, and we're going upward, so we're excited.
Well, right now, what's your lineup look like? Who's your number 1, and break down that team, how that looks for you.
Yeah, so we actually just released our pairs to the team today for our first match that's coming up, our exhibition match versus Mesa Community College on Friday. So we've got, wow, this is putting me on the spot now to remember our pairs. So we've got Raylee Dykstra and Misty McCall in our 1s this weekend. And then in our 2s, we've got Amaya Brown and Haley Brown. 3s, we've got Bree Beckman and Riley Brown. So Haley and Riley Brown are the twins that we've brought in, twin freshmen. Originally, we're thinking we were going to play them together, but then splitting them up was a better idea, and so excited to see what they can do with a returner as well alongside them. Then in our 4s, we've got Anna Kate Clark and Brianna Beckler. So we've got Bree Beckman, we've got Bree Beckler. So we call Bree Beckler Bree squared because she's the younger one. So, and then in our 5s, we've got Sydney Shaw and Katie Shockey, who's one of our indoor girls that has come with us this spring. And then sixes, we've got Diana Guerrero and Nina. We call her Neens Bejarano. And then in our seventh pair, rounding it out, we've got Madeline Gwynn and Emily Harwick. So we're looking good. And what's cool about this year, I think, is just the depth that we have. Last year, we didn't have a lot of mixtures that we could play around with and kind of puzzle pieces to play with. But this year, we've got such awesome depth that we're able to see what works and make some shifts as the season goes. So we're super excited about that depth.
Depth is ultra critical here, and we've seen that with the basketball program under head coach Jeff Rudder. You mentioned Rayleigh Dykstra and Misty McCall as the two that separated themselves to take the ones, if you will. What did those ladies do to earn that opportunity?
Yeah, it was really awesome last year. We paired them together in the middle of the season, kind of as just a way to switch things up. They were both partnered with other people. And we just discovered that when we made that switch, it really clicked and it worked. And we've kept that going this year, and they've both expressed that they really liked working with each other. And I think what's cool about them is they're very versatile, and they communicate really well as partners on the court. So much of that is communicating without actually communicating in kind of the beach partnership. And so they know where each other are at on the court at all times, and they're really creative, and I think they risk. We talk a lot about taking risks on our team, and they're one of our pairs that risks, and they try new things, and they're not afraid to switch things up when they need to. And I think they've showed that maturity, especially from last year to this year, and they just win. I mean, when we play each other at practice, they just win. They're winners. So we're giving them that shot here, starting the season off at number one.
Tim, what did Bruce Arians say? No risk it, no biscuit.
Nice.
So you got to gamble a little bit every now and then. Right? You got to take some shots for the rewards.
You lost. Go back to last year, and you probably lost some leadership in the likes of like an Aubrey Green, where she was an original Firestorm as far as beach volleyball, played her first 4 years. So when you're looking at your team now, you're like, this is my leader. Like, she goes, we go as she goes because we follow her. Who is that?
Yeah, I would say this year we have 3 team captains. It's kind of our leadership group that we've established. It's going to be Misty and Rayleigh, which is, makes sense for their number one pairing. And then Amaya Brown has really stepped into her own as a leader this year. And it's been cool to watch her grow. It's been cool to watch her maturity, and the girls respect her in a lot of the things she does. She grinds. Like, she'll get down and she'll get to the sand early and she'll leave late. And a lot of our girls have that mentality, but I think she drives a lot of that just let's get after it culture and let's not make excuses. And so I think having Misty and Rayleigh step into leadership roles in different ways, because they all bring something different to the table, I think it rounds out our leadership group this year.
Coach, as a team, you're led yourself and Coach Priscilla alongside you. I know that she's actually leading the devotion here coming up for the team department meeting. That's the word I'm looking for.
There you go.
The department meeting coming up. So what does she bring to your table, to your team? Because she's got such a background in so many different areas. What does she bring to your team?
Yeah. Other than impeccable dance moves, she brings...
Are those on video?
Actually, probably. We record a lot of our practices, and so you can often hear us chirping in the background and making up words and abbreviating things, and you'll catch a couple dance moves from either of us. But no, she brings a wealth of wisdom because she's coached for such a long time at different levels. She's coached club, high school, college. So she helps bring a different perspective for me. And obviously, as a head coach, sometimes it can get pretty myopic, but she helps bring in different perspective and helps round out our coaching staff in terms of just considering a lot of different options. But she also has such an awesome background in mental health, mental skills. And so we talk a lot about those intangible things of, okay, we can talk about skill, we can practice, but then what are we thinking about? You got to think about what you're thinking about, especially on the court when you're handling adversity, when the dynamics of beach volleyball are so different, where you and your partner could be losing, but the rest of the team could be winning, or vice versa. So handling a lot of those dynamics, she helps bring intentionality when we're talking about mental health and mental skills and mental toughness and all of those things, the psychology behind it.
One of the things that people talk about, the factors of beach volleyball, that like in indoor you don't have sunlight, you don't have wind, you don't have potential rain, you don't have any of that stuff. And you guys actually pulled off a win last year against Abilene Christian, because a Division I school, but they basically had their indoor team out there, and they could not deal with the wind whatsoever. What does your team do to prepare for random elements like wind and rain and stuff like that?
Yeah, we actually had a really windy practice today, and we, as a team, we call wind Gail. She's a lovely gal. We had to befriend Gail. We had a couple of tournaments last year in Huntington where it got up to about, I want to say, 20 miles an hour. So at that point, you're trying to get the ball over the net. I mean, whoever serves well wins the game. You can't do much. And so after that tournament, I think was the first time our team realized, okay, we have to figure out a way to win when the elements are against us. But I think we talk a lot about strategy in the wind. There's so much strategy, different kinds of wind. If the wind is sideways, if the wind is front and back, depending on what, and side switches have something to do with that. So we talk about strategy. We talk about where do we want to hit, where do we want to pass. There's just a lot of intentionality that goes behind it, and your strategy is going to be completely different than if there was no wind at all. So we take advantage of the days that we do have gale, and then the days when we don't, we still bring those topics up just to kind of keep that fresh in their memory. And we're always picking up sand and seeing which way the wind's going to turn it. We have a great big American flag at the facility that we practice in, so we're always looking up at the flag and seeing which way it's blowing. So just being intentional about what strategy we want to have.
Coach, your season opens. You're excited. I know you are. I can tell it in your voice. You're ready to just be like, let's get on the sand, let's go.
Yeah.
So, Kevin, thoughts on the season opener?
I just wanted to mention that JD and I were talking before the show. We agreed that we owe the Thunderbirds of Mesa Community College that first one, just from the first time we played them, we dropped a match to them. Maybe it was your first season, perhaps. I don't know if you recall playing them. It could have been BS, in this case, before Sarah, if you will. But my thought for you was, I was curious, as you kind of look and take a peek at a looking glass look at the GSAC conference, we look and see, once again, the top 25 in the nation is well represented with representatives from the GSAC conference. Right. So you're going to have your work cut out for you once again this year. Yeah, absolutely. We've got a stacked conference, and it's only getting better. And so this, I think, is a really breakout year. Last year was I think, the first step to our breakout. But this year, we really have an opportunity to make a splash. I think, obviously, our level has improved, but the GSAC's level in general has improved across the board. So we've got our work cut out for us. But we're ready. I think we've got a better mentality this year, and I think that's going to make the difference. So we'll see. I agree with Tim. Like our coach, Sarah Blomgren, we are all very excited for the beginning of the season. It'll be this Friday at 11 o'clock in the morning at Victory Lane Sports Complex. It's a home match for ACU. You did mention it was an exhibition for the first
Correct.
Game, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And then the following week, so next Friday, Saturday, is our first GSAC home opener against all of the other schools in our conference. Very good. Sarah Blomgren, our guest. We are going to talk a little tennis with Mr. Phil Carlisle straight ahead on the Storm Report.
We welcome you back inside the Tower Grill on the campus of Arizona Christian University. I'm Kevin Derryberry alongside Tim Gosen. And now on the main stage is Mr. Phil Carlisle, our head men's and women's tennis coach here on campus. Phil, we welcome you back once again. Tim, what is this like? Is this a record-breaking performance for Phil? Is this number 3, maybe 4?
Three or four on the show. It's not record-breaking because we always have Bone every week in the fall, so he's got the record for sure.
But he's a mainstay on the program, to say the least.
Well, he does a great job, so why not have him back?
Absolutely.
Let's see if we can break the streak here.
Nah, you're good.
Phil, we're building on a GSAC title from a year ago, heading into the new campaign, and that's what we always go to the what have you done for me lately? Well, we won the conference, and now you're heading into this year. Did we win the conference? We didn't win the conference?
Second, yeah.
Playing the finals.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. No,
I stand corrected.
It was good. Yeah, second. Yeah, we finished second, which, to be fair, in 2021 we were second to last. So second was a big improvement. So yeah, the goals would be pretty similar. I mean, we want to kind of at least get back to the finals and hopefully win the whole thing this year. So yeah, second was a great run for us last year. I think we caught a lot of teams off guard, but we won't get that lucky this time. So I think everybody knows what we're capable of. So it's going to be, I would say, more challenging this year to kind of go on the same run that we did last year.
You might be in that hunted category now.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, it's a different looking conference. San Diego Christian, who you played in the final, they actually folded their tennis programs. Marymount California University folded essentially their school, and they did fold their school, so all of athletics went away with that as well. And those were some teams that you were fighting with towards the top. Obviously, San Diego Christian went on to the national tournament and did some things, but you're looking at a different schedule in the sense that you don't have those guys, but the likes of Menlo, the likes of Westcliff, some of those guys have made big improvements, and they're going to be pretty good, so they're going to be right in that conversation with you. What are you seeing going into this year when you're missing some, but you still have some really strong opponents?
Yeah, Menlo, we know a lot about Menlo because Menlo inherited a lot of the San Diego Christian team, minus maybe a couple of the top players on the men's side. For the most part, it's a very similar team. So we know, even though Menlo, it's the first year of them having a tennis program, or at least since they brought it back, we know they're going to be strong because we know a lot of their players, and they did really well at the ITAs in the fall with the women winning both the singles and the doubles draw, and then the two men's top players were playing each other in the finals, and so obviously one of them won it. So they won 3 of the 4 draws. So we know they're going to be strong on both sides. Westcliff they were a good team last year. I think they in some ways probably underachieved a little bit. They were a very, very talented team last year, and they've just added to it. They brought all their top players on both sides back and just added a little bit more to it. So we know that they're probably the best team in the conference, top to bottom. Certainly not unbeatable, not invincible by any means, but we know that they are very strong. And then Westmont's always going to be good. Hope International brought in some new players that they had in the fall. They're going to be strong. So the conference certainly didn't get any easier with San Diego Christian going away. But we still feel like we're one of the better teams. But again, like you were saying, we're kind of the hunted team now, since I think we caught some teams off guard last year, and we know they're going to come for us this year.
Coach, in terms of holdovers, returning Letterman from a year ago, and then newcomers, how do you like the team's outlook here in the early part of the campaign, having just played Northern Arizona up at their place, and take away the numbers from the results? I'm sure there were some things there, some positive takeaways that you saw from your team. Yeah,
NAU is always tough. We obviously don't play a lot indoors, and so going up indoors, it's just a completely different, may not seem like a big difference, but it's a totally different surface. It's a different game, and then you add 7,000 feet of elevation to it. So it gets real tough up there, and those guys, that team's just built to play in there. So we certainly didn't play our best, but like you said, there are a lot of positives to take away. It's a very different looking team. We only have two of our top 6 guys from last year are back. Everybody else is moved on. So it's kind of a mix of a couple returners, some new guys, and then a bunch of guys that were here on the team last year that are going to have to step up this year. They're going to be playing a much more integral role into what we're doing. So, last year they kind of spent some time on the sidelines. They were in our system, if you want to call it that. They know how we do things, but now they're going to have to kind of step up and perform. So it's a very different looking team. We're still going to have to. We have a lot of things to figure out as we kind of go, and that's how the season's going to go. I don't think we're going to have as set of a lineup like we did last year. We played the same lineup essentially every single match. I don't think it's going to play out like that this year. I think we're going to have to move some things around and try some different combinations, some different lineups, and see what works best for us. But it makes it fun. It's a very intriguing outlook to the season.
Who are some of those players that you mentioned that are going to have to step up their role this year?
Yeah, I would say David Moss, Harry Buttafont. Both guys were big parts of the team last year in terms of support and things like that, and certainly got into some matches, but they weren't playing every single match. And David, a couple of years ago, actually, his freshman and sophomore year, he was part of the lineup, and just different things kind of fell out of it last year. But he's been playing very, very well this spring, so I'm kind of excited to see him get back in there. He's a senior, he's got a lot of experience, and I think he is really kind of relishing this moment. So those two guys, Gustavo Montoya, that's another one, Marcelo Diaz. So those are all guys that I think are going to have to kind of step up to go along with the other guys. But they all know how we do things, and I think they're excited for the opportunity now to come in and compete and to kind of see a bit more playing time than they did last year.
When you look at the guys you brought in, some people would be like, they're not that good, and they don't look. Some of them are not the tallest guys in the world.
Yeah.
When you've gone from somebody like Pop and you had Jonas at number 2, now he's up in the 1 or 2 mix.
Yep.
Jonas brings the height, but the rest of your lineup is pretty short. But you say that doesn't mean anything, and one of your best players is probably one of your shortest players. One of your new guys.
Yeah, Hugo. Yeah, he's a Hugo Abril. He's a character. It plays a bit of an unorthodox style of tennis, but it works. You ask the guys, I don't think any of them enjoy playing against him because it's just a little bit different. A lot of slices, a lot of touch, a lot of finesse, a lot of things that I don't think you see in a lot of common college tennis players. But I think that's going to be a real weapon. I think he's just very different in terms of his style. But again, he is a shorter guy. I think he's 5'6", 5'7", maybe. So yeah, we don't maybe look the same. I think we have Jonas and David, and Josh Jones, another one of our newer guys, is also a bit taller. But yeah, outside of that, we don't have the height this year. We don't have the physical presence, but we have a lot of guys that they just know how to scrap. They know how to fight. They know how to battle. They have the right attitudes, the right mentalities going into it. So we may not look as imposing as maybe we did a year ago, but we're not going to give anybody any less of a match. Like I said, we've got some gamers, and they're fun to be around.
Northern Arizona was mentioned, but that was like a long time ago.
Yeah,
when you look in the rearview mirror, that's getting way back there in the rearview mirror. So how have you kept your guys from going completely stir crazy in that about month that you've had between that NAU matches and playing again?
Yeah, that hasn't been easy. Last week we had to kind of ramp it up a little bit in terms of our inter-squad competition and just a lot more match play, point play against each other. But I think the guys understand that once next week comes, we have a couple of matches, then it's just kind of bang, bang, bang through the rest of the year. So it has been a bit of a slower start, but I think the guys have used the time well to get themselves in better shape, to just be fully prepared for the grind that the next 8-9 weeks will be. But we have had to ramp up some of the competition at practices, whereas in season, a lot of times it's a bit more drill. It's a bit, it's keeping them healthy, managing things like that. Whereas we've had to really go at it the last couple of, last week and going into this week. So not been easy. It has been a long time. I think the guys are more than ready to get out and start competing and playing. So I think they're really excited about next week.
Phil Carlisle, our guest on the Storm Report. He's the head coach for the men's and women's tennis team. I want to ask Phil about the pipeline that you seem to have from Barcelona, Spain. It seems like we continue to get players from overseas, and they come over here and they pay dividends.
Yeah, just a lot of connections. This is, what year is this? 11 overall, I think, coaching. So it's a lot of connections over the years. Tennis is such an international sport. Obviously, a lot of the American demographic, they focus on the big D1 schools, and if that doesn't work out, some of them just don't end up playing college tennis at all. So a lot of the international kids are really anxious and excited to get over here, and so they're kind of looking for the opportunities. And so obviously we find kids that we think fit what we do, obviously fit the university, but fit what we do as a team, kind of our culture and our atmosphere. And we certainly want to be a team that knows how to support each other, encourage each other, play with a lot of energy. And so I think we find the players both internationally, domestically, that kind of fit that the most. And so, yeah, we do have a lot of internationals, a lot of connections over the years, but they've always been very good for us, very helpful for us.
Membership has its privileges for you, Phil, when you have those kinds of connections and you've developed those relationships over the year. My last one for you, Phil, is when you try to find and locate that athlete that's a perfect fit for ASU, then you go through the recruiting process. In football, it's pretty well documented in how people arrive at landing new athletes. You see film, you do a lot of studying of film and whatnot. How do you apply that same approach when it comes to finding and landing a tennis recruit, much like a guy like Hugo Abril, where you know the background he comes from, but you mentioned his style of play is quite different than your typical tennis player. How does this all come about?
Yeah, the first part for me is always just getting to know the person more than the player. Again, I think the biggest thing that we've tried to do over the last couple of years is establish a culture and an atmosphere in our team that, again, everybody needs to have some energy, need to be a team. I think tennis is often looked at as an individual sport, and it is to an extent, but in college it really is a team sport, and you have to be able to push each other, be pushed by each other, things like that. And so that's always step one. And then, you start digging into tournament results. Obviously you watch some of the film, and Hugo's a funny one because his film is a little bit, it just doesn't look like your traditional tennis player, especially not college tennis player. He's not out there smacking it as hard as he possibly can. He's not the biggest guy in the world. But you can kind of see, okay, he's very intelligent, he's smart, he's crafty. I think if he fits what we're doing as a team, I think he's going to really surprise some people. And that's what he's done since he's been here. It doesn't look the same if you come out and watch him. He doesn't look like Jonas. He doesn't play like some of these other guys, but his style works for him. And so at the end of the day, if it works for you, it doesn't always have to look the same.
Sure.
And so that's he works hard, and all our guys do, and they work really hard, and they're good at what they do. So it definitely looks different, but that, again, it just kind of adds to the fun. It's everybody's got a little bit of a different technique, different strategy, different idea of how they're going to play, and it makes it fun.
We're in a results-driven society, Tim.
We are, and we will be in big trouble if we don't talk about a little bit, at least, about your ladies.
Yes. I was thinking the same thing.
We got to talk. I know we're going to go a little longer, but we got to talk about your ladies a little bit. You opened the season, took on Pacific Lutheran, got a nice win against them, a Division III school. So on the ladies front, what does your team look like?
Yeah, so it's half and half, 4 returners, 4 new of the 8 girls this year. So we bring back some of our top girls from last year, Deandra Bacchus, Vittoria Quadri, and Carla Grobbelaar. Fun name, Grobbelaar. And so we definitely have some of the experience, but the new pieces that have come in, Emma Troyer is another one of the returners who was in our top 6 last year, and so has a lot of experience. But we bring in a lot of the new ones as well, and I think they've brought just kind of a new energy. They have fun at practice. Practices, I think, have been a lot more energetic, a lot more, just more fun in general. They've been more productive, I think. And so, yeah, it's going to be. I would expect us with the experience to certainly improve on last year. It's a tough schedule. It's a tough conference. The women's side is very strong and very deep this year. But with some of, especially the returning top players, I do think we have a chance to kind of maybe do what the guys did a little bit last year, just surprise a few teams that I think might overlook us a little bit. But Pacific Lutheran was a good start for us, but we know it's going to get a lot tougher as we go, even next week, and certainly as we get into the conference.
Coach, when you span the globe with your ladies, once again, well represented. You mentioned Carla Grobbelaar, George, South Africa. How about Vittoria Quadri out of Florence, Italy? And then we'll just mention one more, Jasmine Thompson from the Nassau, Bahamas.
Yeah.
This is world-renowned traveling here.
Yeah, same exact idea. It's about the people, and they're great girls. Carla's one of our captains this year, so she and Deandra are the only 2 on the team that have been with me since my first year, and so we know each other well and know how we like to do things, and so they're great. Carla's it's funny how different. She's very outgoing and personable and just chatty and energetic, and Victoria's very quiet and very reserved, and again, both great girls, but very, very different. Similar, I think, in the way that they play. Not a lot of reservations in terms of they just both hit everything really, really hard. But it's definitely a joy to have so many different cultures and different backgrounds, and I think it makes it really fun for the girls to kind of get to know each other and get to know about their stories and their philosophies and their cultures and things like that.
Fascinating. Last one for me. I think at one point we were struggling to get equipment. Last time we had Sean. Has that changed? Are you able to get what you need when you need it now?
It's resolved to an extent. Yeah, tennis balls. There was a tennis ball shortage last year. There's a shortage of everything, I guess. But tennis balls they were hard to come by. They are far more expensive now than they were.
Shocker.
Yeah, I know. So
surprise.
I think that's probably lessened the amount of tennis balls being shipped out because people just don't buy quite the same amount that they used to. But yeah, fortunately that has calmed down a bit. So we are starting to have an easier time getting tennis balls. But even back in the fall, August, September, it was still a bit of a struggle, but it does seem to finally be kind of clearing up. So hopefully we don't run out of balls before the matches start.
Fantastic.
Well, you had some teams show up and they didn't even have enough tennis balls to play the match, or
yeah.
Like, hey, can we borrow some cans of balls? You're like, where are yours?
Yeah, we had to assist our local school down about 30 minutes from here last year because they showed up to a match played over here and they forgot balls, so we had to help them out with some of ours, which was fine. Yeah, but it's just part of it. I think everybody was trying to reserve their ball supply as long as they could.
That's karma, though, right? You got to be able to produce the balls when necessary.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Was waiting on that one.
They say teed them up for it. So
yeah, well, I do. My last thing for you, we go back to the World Cup, and yes, it wasn't the summer; it was just a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And you had a great time. Again, I don't know. I think you were just about it every time there was a game. You were sitting there in the lobby, even if it was a Saturday, just about, I think.
I did, yeah.
But you were having a blast with it. And if you haven't experienced a soccer game or any type of game with Phil, he's a vast encyclopedia of knowledge for all kinds of sports. And it was super fun to hang out and watch the World Cup with you. And then, of course, heckle Coach Sarah as well.
Yeah, I discovered that Sarah's soccer knowledge is less than what I even thought it was. So it was impressively low.
So it was 0 and now it was -1?
Yeah, it's less than what I thought was humanly possible. So it was great.
That's Phil Carlisle, our guest. Phil, before we let you go, how about a Super Bowl pick?
Oh, I'm going Chiefs. Let's go 34-24 Chiefs.
34-24. A lot of the pundits, nationally speaking, all in on Philly. I'm with you. I think the Chiefs are going to get it done.
I don't bet against Mahomes.
But I tell you what, it could be a pick-up game. Tim, your thoughts?
I don't really care like who wins, but probably the Chiefs. I think I go with if I'm leaning one way. Hopefully it's a good game. That's all I root for in the Super Bowl.
I know your favorite baseball team, but I don't think we've ever gotten to the NFL. Maybe I
Dolphins.
know it, and you said that you revealed that last show.
Yeah.
I believe it was the Miami Dolphins. That's where the conversation ended. It was like that's where it ended.
Ouch.
Hey, we made the playoffs this year.
Dan Marino, and that's Bob Greasy, 72 Dolphins, all that stuff.
Hey, still undefeated, baby.
It's been a minute for sure.
Still, and the only team undefeated with 72 Dolphins. That's going to be a wrap for us here on the Storm Report. Special thank you to all of our guests, head coach Joe McDonald, Sarah Blomgren, who's still here, and then, of course, our partner here, Mr. Phil Carlisle. We wish you guys success going forward here. Special thank you to Tim G. and, of course, JD Hamby and Luke Sanders also. Until next time, so long for now.